What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we are doing the 74th installment of Retro Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing my Gemini Jets 1:400 scale Northwest Airlink Bombardier CRJ-200. This is a very lovely little model for the Retro FSD project, and one of only two, or actually three, Northwest Airlink aircraft that I have, since I have a Mesaba Saab 340 and an F-27 by Gemini Jets and Aero Classics, respectively. And I'll certainly talk about more aircraft that I'd like to see made for Northwest Airlink in 1:400 scale, because there aren't too many subjects of it in the scale. There's a couple more that I'd like to get that are out there, but they are very difficult to find, as is the case with a lot of these retro and modern classic regional aircraft that used to exist back in the 90s and 2000s, and even the early to mid-2010s. There's a lot of subjects that are very difficult to find. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the box. We've got the Gemini Jets logo up here, Northwest logo, image of the aircraft, Bombardier CRJ-200, made for collectors by collectors is down there, which on my American F-100 box, it's down there in the bottom right as well. And then there's the inside, plastic cradle and everything, which I think the top yellowed a little bit if I remember right. You kind of saw it there. There's a pamphlet, which you can pause to read. And then on the back, this is a 2006 release. This was released specifically in the month of July, so this model is about 19 years old, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, here's the right side of the box. We've got the Gemini Jets logo, image of the aircraft, aircraft type, 1:400 scaled die cast. Item number is GJ-NWA 335. Adult collectible model warning up there. Then this side has also the scaled die cast. And then there's the bottom of the box with the standard Gemini Jets advertising. So let's bring this model into view, and this is the only Northwest Airlink aircraft that I have in the final livery. This very nice, like, pearlescent golden livery, whatever you want to call it. The inconsistency with the final livery color for Northwest in 1:400 scale is very prominent. Like my A320 has a slightly different color too. My 319 from Aero Classics also has a completely different color. It's more of a white tone than like this warmer tone that is present here on the CRJ-200. But at any rate, we'll go ahead and begin with this review. I did pick up this model in 2022 as I was growing the Retro FSD fleet. Starting at the front, we have the nose cone and the cockpit windows. There's a little bit of text right there, which should say operated by Pinnacle Airlines, something along the lines of that. There's the nose gear, which is very primitive, very basic, and that's kind of been the norm for the CRJ-200s. Not a whole lot of detail going on there. But again, you have to keep in mind that this is a very tiny detail, so getting it, proportionally accurate would be very difficult, if not impossible. So you kind of have to compromise on some details to keep structural integrity of it, because if you had like a really thin piece of metal or whatever that was holding that up, that whole nose would just come crashing down. So you have to keep that in mind, that these things are not going to be 100% accurate to the real thing. There's the L1 door, there's the Northwest Airlink titles, and then there's an overwing door right there as well. Registration is November 88904 Alpha with an American flag underneath. And there's a look at the red winglet, very characteristic for Northwest aircraft at the time. There's the engines along with the luggage door underneath, and the very lovely Northwest tail, which is just the little arrow pointing to the Northwest there in the name. Right side of the aircraft, a smaller door is present there, and not too much over here that is different. Always the norm there, but there's that Northwest tail again, looking really nice. This is such a cool little model here. And then flipping underneath, we do have a large Gemini Jets logo stand hole, and the landing gear and everything else look good there. Top of the aircraft with all the wing details featured, and a couple printed details up there. It looks like a beacon light and some white dome or something. I'm not sure what that would be for this CRJ-200 at the time, but certainly interesting to note that there. So a nice little model, and would recommend this. I got this for, I think it was like 40 or 50 bucks off of eBay at that time in 2022. So very nice to have it, and is very rare. So good luck trying to find a Northwest Airlink aircraft. And I'll talk more about what other aircraft I'd like to add and what else could be made in this scale after we take a look at the real life aircraft's history. I could not find a first flight date, probably sometime in late 2003, since it was delivered to Pinnacle Airlines operating under Northwest Airlink branding in January of 2004. It began operations with Delta Connection pretty early on in October 2008, but whether or not this aircraft was actually painted into Delta colors right away, very unlikely, because we had plenty of Northwest aircraft that were wearing their final livery as late as like 2010 or even 2011 probably, well after the merger had been completed. She then went to Pinnacle Airlines in June of 2013. Pinnacle Airlines was under the airline holding company called Pinnacle Airlines Corporation. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2012 and then emerged from it the next year. And Pinnacle Airlines was the surviving entity, the only one that survived out of that, and they did rebrand it to Endeavor Air starting in August of 2013, but as noted here, it was transferred there just a couple months beforehand. This aircraft was put into storage a couple times, once from March 2015 to June of 2016, then it was brought back out of storage, put back into service, and this aircraft has been stored since June of 2022. It has not seen any flights since then, or at least any that have been reported. And the current status of this aircraft is that Gold Coast Aviation is the latest reported owner for this aircraft. So I'm not sure what they are doing with it or what they plan to do with it, but as of right now, the aircraft, the latest reports that I can find show that it is in storage. So I don't know if they're going to use it for anything or if it's just going to sit there in storage, just collecting dust, or if they're going to use it for spare parts or something. But whatever the case is, I'm sure something will change. And they did get this aircraft in November of 2024, so fairly recent update since it had been with Endeavor Air / Delta Connection for 11 years up to that point, a little more than that. So there's a look at the real-life aircraft's history, and now I want to take a look at some Northwest Airlink aircraft in 1 to 400 scale real quick. Now with Gemini Jets, they have made a good plethora of Northwest Airlink aircraft in 1 to 400 scale. So there's a decent set of options, but there's also a decent set of options that aren't available because they have not been made before. So if I look here, this CRJ-200 was actually the first ever release of Northwest Airlink in 1 to 400 scale, at least documented by the Model Aircraft Database. Then they made a couple of Avro RJ-85s, one in the final livery and one in the bowling shoe livery in 2007, released in the same month. That's very cool. And then the CRJ-900 in December. And then that F-27 that I have was released by Aero Classics in 2012. And then Gemini Jets did the Saab 340s, the final livery in September of 2012, and then the bowling shoe livery in June of 2013. And the last time we've seen Northwest Airlink was a short 360 in the thermometer livery. That was released in September of 2013. So it has been almost 12 full years since our last Northwest Airlink release, which is pretty ridiculous in my opinion, because there are a ton of fun subjects that could be made with Northwest Airlink. You could certainly make another Shorts 360 in the bowling shoe livery, but it's like this really unique like white top variant of it. I'm not sure too much about that. It is operated by Pacific Island Aviation is what I see. Then you have the Dash 8 100, which I've requested 3D Design Deck to do since they have the mold and Gemini hasn't really used it all that much since the American releases. And then you have there's also this really cool livery on the Saab 340. It's like this, I don't know how to describe it, but it's got the route map for Masaba on it. It's very cool. There's an F-27 in the thermometer livery. That could be done as well. And then there's also an Embraer 175 that could be made in the final livery. That would be epic for Gemini Jets to release as a nice modern classic at some point, with the short winglets, not the enhanced winglets, since that didn't come until much later. And I guess they had ATR 42s as well. I'm just finding this out. November 425 Mike Delta. That one was wearing the thermometer livery. I literally just came across like a decal photo of it. But I'm not seeing any photos of it, so perhaps it's just a fantasy or something. So, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But no, Simmons Airlines, okay, so yeah, it's not a fantasy there. But very cool. And then the Saab 340 as well with the thermometer livery. That one I've requested several years ago, and that has not been acted upon. So, Gemini Jets, if you've got some of these regional jets in your backlog, please release them ASAP, because that would be awesome. And then 3D design deck, if you can get on that Dash 8-100 ASAP. If it's not out by the time this video is released, that would be awesome. I'd love to pick one of those up, because that one I will need for Retro FSD, whereas the others is just kind of, you know, whatever. The CRJ-900 to number 175 would be good for modern classic eras for Retro FSD, but otherwise, we're looking pretty good with Northwest Airlink as of right now. And I can't forget the CRJ-200, this aircraft with the bowling shoe livery. That's a big one to be made as well. So it's kind of a long session there with other Northwest Airlink aircraft to be made in the scale. But now I want to talk about what you're going to be seeing for retro reviews as we move forward. Coming up next week, we will be in the month of June. And with that being said, Airliners International is happening at the end of June. It'll be June 25th through 28th in Atlanta at the Delta Flight Museum. Retro reviews throughout June will be themed around Delta Airlines models, because obviously we're going to be in Atlanta, and Atlanta is the flagship hub for Delta Airlines, and that's been kind of the theme with this year's show. So that means I've already pre-selected a bunch of Delta models that I'll be doing retro reviews on, and you'll be seeing them uploaded all throughout the month of June, every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So be sure to tune into those reviews, since they will be of really cool aircraft that I have, mostly widget aircraft, and I think I have like one Delta Flot in there as well, if I remember right. But you will be seeing them all throughout the month of June as we build up the hype and the anticipation for Airliners International 2025 in Atlanta. So it is coming quick. We are less than a month away from the show. So be sure to come on out if you can, even if it's just for the day, because the show is phenomenal for any attendees, whether you're a first-timer or you're a veteran of the show. Be sure to come on out, because it is a fun time. With that being said, that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.